Looks like we've got a mountain of gaming articles here, and our listeners are ready to lock and load for some first-person shooter recommendations on PS5 and PC.
Yeah, lots to dive into here. A really impressive mix of games, too.
Let's jump right in.
Sounds good to me.
First up, Deathloop. This one got some mixed reviews when it launched, right?
Yeah.
I remember some players found that whole time loop thing a little repetitive. What are your thoughts?
Well, Deathloop is really all about mastering that loop. You're stuck in this really cool retro futuristic world, and the same day just keeps playing out over and over again.
Groundhog Day, but with assassins.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Your goal is to take out these 8 targets before midnight hits so you can break the cycle. And the really clever thing is, the game encourages you to try different things each time. You keep learning more about your targets, like their routines, their weaknesses, what makes them tick.
So it's like a puzzle you're slowly figuring out, one assassination at a time.
Exactly. You start by gathering intel, maybe listening in on conversations or finding clues scattered around. Then you use that knowledge to, sort of manipulate events and set up these perfect assassinations. You've got a ton of freedom in how you approach each target.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
Want to go in guns blazing? Sure. Set a trap, go for it. Even possess an enemy and turn them against their friends.
That's wild.
It's all on the table. And the more you play, the more you start to see how everything's connected. Something you do in one loop can have these crazy ripple effects in the next.
I can see how some people might find that frustrating.
It can be, but it's a game that really rewards you for being patient, exploring, and just trying new things.
Okay, next up is Far Cry 6. Now, when I think Far Cry, I think crazy action, exotic locations, and, well, a healthy dose of absurdity.
Yeah.
Does Far Cry 6 deliver on that front?
Oh, totally. Far Cry 6 really leans into that signature chaos and humor the series is known for. This time around, you're fighting to liberate this fictional Caribbean island called Yara from this dictator, Anton Castillo.
Oh, yeah, and Giancarlo Esposito plays him.
He's fantastic. And the game really doesn't hold back on the crazy weapons and gadgets either. They've got everything from this CD launcher that blasts enemies with Macarena to a backpack that lets you unleash a barrage of homing missiles.
Okay, that CD launcher sounds ridiculously awesome. I kind of want to see that in action.
It's those little touches that make Far Cry so special.
Right, but how's the actual gameplay?
It's that classic open-world power fantasy. Explore the island, build up your arsenal, recruit allies, tackle missions however you want. The combat is as explosive and satisfying as ever. And, of course, you've got your animal companion.
Gotta have the animal companion.
This time, it's this dachshund in a wheelchair named Chorizo. He's adorable and surprisingly deadly.
A dachshund in a wheelchair. Okay, I'm sold.
Chorizo definitely steals the show. Far Cry 6 is just a stunning game that embraces being over the top. It's a thrilling, hilarious ride.
Sounds like a blast. Now, let's talk about the big guns of the multiplayer scene. You've got Modern Warfare the Third and Warzone in your stack. Seems like Call of Duty is still king when it comes to online FPS.
I mean, there's a reason Call of Duty continues to dominate. They just nail that fast-paced competitive action that keeps players coming back.
For sure.
Warzone, with its free-to-play model, has just exploded in popularity. It's a massive battle royale, dropping into a huge map, scavenging for weapons, fighting to be the last one standing.
And what about Modern Warfare 3? Does it live up to the hype?
Modern Warfare 3 definitely brings back that classic Call of Duty feel, but with some modern updates. The gunplay is incredibly smooth, the maps are well designed, and the game modes offer a good mix of familiar favorites and some new things to shake things up.
You said modern updates. What sets Modern Warfare 3 apart?
Well, they've made some big changes to how movement works. They've added tactical sprint and slide canceling, which makes things feel faster and more fluid.
Oh, I've heard about slide canceling.
Plus, there's this new mode called Ground War, and it is intense.
How so?
2 teams, 32 players each, these massive objective-based battles. It's pure chaos.
Sounds a bit like my kind of chaos.
But controlled chaos.
I like it. Speaking of chaos, you included Prodeus on your list.
Yeah.
This one seems like a throwback to those classic retro shooters like Doom and Quake. What makes Prodeus stand out in a market that's pretty crowded with retro FPS games?
Prodeus is a love letter to classic shooters, but it's not just about nostalgia.
Right.
It takes those core elements, that fast-paced action, pixelated gore, those crazy levels, and it modernizes them. The visuals are stunning, and the soundtrack is killer.
I've seen some gameplay footage, and it looks intense.
It is.
Is it as hard as those old-school games?
Prodeus does not mess around. It throws you right into the action.
Trial by fire!
The enemies are relentless, the weapons pack a punch, and the levels are full of secrets to find.
Classic.
But that's what makes it so great. It demands skill, precision, but man, is it rewarding when you master it.
I can imagine. And speaking of challenging, you've also included Metro Exodus. This series is known for being gritty, that post-apocalyptic atmosphere, and just the whole focus on survival. What makes Metro Exodus stand out in a genre with so many survival games?
Metro Exodus takes players on this journey across a post-apocalyptic Russia. And you're not just fighting mutants and bandits, you're battling the elements, you're scavenging just to survive, and you're making these really tough choices that can have a real impact on the story and your companions.
So it's more than just a shooter, it's a survival game with a real emphasis on story and atmosphere.
Exactly. Metro Exodus completely immerses you in its world.
I can see that.
The environments are incredibly detailed, the characters are well developed, and the story sticks with you long after you've finished playing.
Sounds intense.
Yeah.
It is. Okay, so we've talked about games that make you think, games that make you laugh, and games that make you feel like you're really scrapping to survive in a post-apocalyptic world.
Lots of variety.
Now let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about hero shooters and battle royales. You included Apex Legends in your stack. This one's taken the gaming world by storm. What makes it so compelling?
Apex Legends really took that battle royale formula and injected it with hero shooter awesomeness.
Yeah.
It's not just about surviving to the end.
Right.
It's about working as a team, having a strategy, and using your Legend's unique abilities to outsmart and outgun your opponents.
So it's kind of like Overwatch meets Fortnite.
You could say that. The game has this diverse roster of Legends, and each one has their own unique abilities and playstyles.
That's cool.
You've got offensive Legends like Bangalore, who can, call in artillery strikes, defensive Legends like Gibraltar, who can deploy a shield, and support Legends like Lifeline, who can heal and revive teammates.
That's a lot of depth for a free-to-play game.
Exactly. That's what's so great about Apex Legends. It's easy to pick up, but there's a high skill ceiling. The gunplay is tight, the movement system is super fluid, and mastering each Legend's abilities takes time. Plus, Respawn Entertainment keeps the game fresh with new Legends, maps, weapons, and game modes. There's always something new to check out.
From what I've seen, the movement in Apex Legends looks incredible. Players are sliding, jumping, ziplining everywhere. Is that a big part of why it's so popular?
Oh, definitely. Mastering the movement system is key to doing well in Apex. You got to be able to get around the map quickly, dodge your opponents, and position yourself for that perfect shot. It adds a whole other layer of skill to the game.
Speaking of skill, let's talk Doom Eternal. This one's pure adrenaline. It's demon-slaying mayhem, pushing players to their limits. What makes it stand out from other action-packed FPS games?
Doom Eternal is just a symphony of destruction. It's all about being aggressive, staying on the offensive, never letting up. And it's not just about shooting demons, You've got to master the combat loop. Right weapons for the right enemies. Manage your resources, keep moving, think ahead.
So it's not all just run and gun, there's strategy involved?
Big time. Doom Eternal rewards you for mastering that combat system.
Yeah.
It's demanding for sure, but it's incredibly satisfying when you pull off those crazy demon slaying combos.
And the soundtrack, I've heard it's epic.
It is phenomenal. Heavy metal, industrial rock, it just fits perfectly with the game's intensity.
Gets your heart pumping.
Absolutely. It makes you feel unstoppable.
Sounds like Doom Eternal isn't for the casual gamer.
It's not for everyone, that's for sure. But if you're looking for an FPS that'll test your reflexes, your strategy, your endurance,
Yeah.
Doom Eternal is a must-play.
Okay, next up, Titanfall 2. This one was kind of a sleeper hit, right? It came out around the same time as some other big FPS games and sort of flew under the radar. What makes it stand out? Why does it deserve a spot on this list?
Titanfall 2 really surprised a lot of people. That single-player campaign was just fantastic. It was action-packed, but also surprisingly emotional.
Oh, interesting.
The story is all about the bond between this pilot, Jack Cooper, and his Titan, BT-7274. It's a story about friendship, trust, sacrifice.
So it's not just giant robots smashing things.
There's real heart to it.
Yeah.
And the gameplay's fantastic. Fast, fluid movement, satisfying shooting, and of course getting to call down your Titan to just wreck everything.
That's awesome. So Titanfall 2 strikes a nice balance between that over-the-top action and some genuine storytelling.
It really does. It's a game that proves you can have both. You can have those big cinematic moments where you're in this giant mech blowing stuff up, but you can also have those quieter moments that really make you care about the characters and the story.
You've also got two games that really lean into the co-op chaos side of things, Borderlands 3 and Destiny 2. Let's start with Borderlands 3. This series is known for its wacky humor, that distinct art style, and just tons of loot. Does Borderlands 3 live up to what came before?
Borderlands 3 knows exactly what it is. It's a loop shooter that drops you into this crazy, chaotic world with memorable characters, crazy weapons, and just endless enemies to blast through.
I've always loved the look of Borderlands. That art style is so unique.
It's a visual feast. Those cel-shaded graphics give it that comic book vibe, and the humor is just as sharp and irreverent as ever. Borderlands 3 doesn't take itself too seriously, which is part of its charm. It's all about having fun, trying out different weapons, and causing as much mayhem as possible.
And how's the co-op? Is it better with friends?
Oh, absolutely. Borderlands 3 is best played with friends, teaming up to take down bosses, exploring the world, sharing loot. It's incredibly fun and rewarding. The game really encourages working together, and there's nothing like coordinating attacks to take down a tough enemy.
You mentioned loot, and I know Borderlands is famous for having a crazy amount of weapons. Does Borderlands 3 deliver on that?
It does. Borderlands 3 has over 1 billion guns, pistols that shoot exploding saw blades, shotguns that fire homing rockets, sniper rifles that electrocute enemies. It's a loot lover's dream.
From billions of guns to a massive universe of its own, Destiny 2 has become a force in gaming. It's always changing, with new expansions, seasons, events to keep people coming back. What makes it so captivating? Why is it a game you'd recommend?
Destiny 2 has created this world that players just want to get lost in. It's part shooter, part MMO, a really unique experience. You've got a massive world to explore, a great story to uncover, tons of activities to do. Whether you're into competitive multiplayer co-op raids or just exploring space, Destiny 2 has something for everyone.
I've heard Destiny 2 has a really dedicated community.
Oh, absolutely. That's one of its biggest strengths. There's a real sense of camaraderie. People are always happy to help each other out, whether it's with a raid, a quest, or just offering advice.
You mentioned MMO elements. What are those like? How do they change the FPS experience?
Destiny 2 has a deep character progression system. You level up your Guardian, you get new gear, customize your abilities to fit how you like to play. The loot game is great, there's always something new to chase after, and the game's constantly being updated, so there's always a reason to come back.
It sounds like you could easily spend hundreds, even thousands of hours in Destiny 2.
It's definitely a game that can become a hobby, but that's part of its appeal. It's a world you can really invest in, a universe you can explore and conquer with your friends, and it's a game that keeps evolving, so there's always something new to discover.
Wow, we've covered some serious ground in this deep dive. I think that's a great point to end on. We've given our listeners a lot to think about today.
We have.
From time loops and demon slaying to loot explosions and the potential of new technologies, the world of FPS gaming has something for everyone.
And this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many amazing FPS games out there.
Right, so go out there, explore, experiment, and find the games you love.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.